What if the challenge your leadership team is having with AI has less to do with strategy and more to do with the breakdown of shared reality inside the team itself? Think back to your childhood. Do you remember your parents reading the newspaper every morning before work or every evening after dinner? Someone in the house would sit down and read the daily paper, the one that was delivered to your doorstep or landed in your driveway. The same headlines, the same stories, the same pictures, the same order of information. What was on page two was on page two for everyone in your community. The newspaper was static. Once it went to print, the content was locked. The version I read was the same version you read. The family next door received the same information. The family across town did too. In many ways, the community shared the same lens on reality. Most people have not fully realized how much that world has disappeared. But before we go any further, let me take a minute to introduce myself, if you are new here. My name is Chris Schmelzer, and I serve leaders who recognize the need and understand that the old models of leading and working are no longer keeping up with the pace of change. Every week, I track the subtle signals that a massive reset is coming for what we refer to as white-collar work, and share thoughts on how to lead yourself and your organization through the age of accelerating change. If you find any value in this video, like it, share your comments below, and subscribe. Today, my version of YouTube is different than yours. My LinkedIn feed is different than yours. My Netflix home screen is different than yours. Even when we land on the same news website, the stories, headlines, and ordering of information are often personalized to us. No two homepages are the same, which means none of us are consuming static information anymore. And increasingly, most people are not consciously choosing what they consume. According to research from YouTube, more than 70% of the content watched on the platform now comes from its recommendation algorithm rather than direct search or subscriptions. In other words, the platform is choosing what perspectives people see next. Social platforms have become highly effective prediction engines, constantly learning what captures attention, triggers emotion, increases watch time, and reinforces engagement. And over time, that reinforcement begins shaping perspective. The result is not simply personalization, it is fragmentation. Two people can live in the same city, work in the same company, sit in the same leadership meeting, and still experience completely different informational realities about the same emerging topic. And when the topic is something as emotionally charged and fast-moving as AI, those fragmented realities begin shaping what people believe, and ultimately how safe or threatened they feel by the future itself. This might sound like a media problem. It's not. It is rapidly becoming an organizational problem. I recently observed this dynamic firsthand during a conversation with a leadership team. Some leaders were fully aboard the AI train. They saw mostly upside, speed, opportunity, competitive advantage. Their posture was clear: move fast, or the organization risks irrelevance. Others on the same team were much more cautious. They saw operational risk, governance concerns, security questions, legal exposure, and workforce disruption. Their posture was slower and more measured. Both perspectives were intelligent, informed, and valuable. But what became increasingly clear during the conversation was that these leaders were not operating from the same assumptions about what AI actually meant for the organization. At one point in the conversation, a leader used the phrase, which seemed obvious to everyone: "We need to become an AI-first organization." Everyone in the room nodded. But as the conversation continued, something became increasingly obvious. The room was not actually aligned on what that phrase meant. For one leader, AI first meant aggressive automation and workforce restructuring. For another, it meant cautious experimentation and internal education. For another, it meant faster software development cycles. Same language, entirely different interpretations. This is the danger zone I believe many leadership teams are entering right now. Not disagreement, but false alignment. Leadership teams using the same language while silently operating from different assumptions, different fears, and increasingly different realities. And most leaders are completely unaware it is happening. The operational consequences are subtle at first. Leaders leave the same meeting with different interpretations of the decision that was made. Teams execute toward slightly different priorities. Middle managers receive conflicting signals. Urgency increases, and with it, clarity decreases. And over time, organizations begin experiencing a strange form of friction where everyone appears aligned on the surface, but execution slowly drifts underneath. AI is accelerating this problem dramatically because organizations are now attempting to build shared understanding around concepts evolving faster than language itself can stabilize. Words like agent, agentic, human in the loop, co-pilot, and recursive systems are entering organizational conversations before teams have developed shared meaning around them. What one leader means by AI agent may be entirely different than what another leader means, yet both assume they are talking about the same thing. Truthfully, this problem has existed inside organizations for a long time. Corporate environments are already filled with language that sounds aligned on the surface, but carries wildly different interpretations underneath. Words and phrases like action plan, advisory committee, strategic initiative, culture transformation, customer centric, or alignment. Many of these terms create only the illusion of shared understanding. But ask 10 people in the same organization what those terms actually mean, and you will often get 10 slightly different answers. People use the language confidently. Authority gets projected onto the words. Meetings move forward as though everyone is operating from the same definition. But underneath the surface, meaning is often much looser than leaders realize. That problem is only accelerating with AI. In my 2026 predictions report, one of the forecasts I made was that we would begin to see growing public backlash and emotional polarization around AI this year. Last weekend, that prediction started playing out publicly during a commencement speech at the University of Central Florida. As the speaker began discussing AI as the next industrial revolution, students booed from the audience. What struck me watching the clip was not whether the speaker was right or wrong. It was how emotionally charged the topic of AI has already become. Because beneath the surface, AI is no longer simply being interpreted as a technology story. For many people, it is being interpreted as a threat story, a threat to careers, a threat to identity, a threat to stability, a threat to predictability. And the information environments people inhabit are amplifying those emotional interpretations in very different directions. Some people are consuming highly optimistic narratives around AI abundance, leverage, creativity, and acceleration, while others are consuming narratives centered around layoffs, replacement, economic instability, surveillance, and loss of human relevance. And those emotional interpretations increasingly shape how leaders show up inside organizational conversations. Which brings us to the deeper issue underneath all of this. Questioning the assumptions of a group does not simply feel intellectual. It feels more like social risk, rejection. For most of human history, ostracism from the group could mean death. Our nervous systems still carry echoes of that reality. Human beings are deeply tribal by nature. We are wired to associate belonging with safety, which means challenging the assumptions of a room can trigger a surprising amount of internal resistance, even when no actual danger exists. You can see this play out in real time inside leadership meetings. A leader pauses before speaking. Someone starts a sentence with, "This might be a stupid question, but..." Another executive notices an assumption that feels off, but chooses not to challenge it because the room already appears aligned. So the assumptions remain unchallenged, not because people lack intelligence, but because the nervous system often interprets social risk as something far greater than it is. And in moments of accelerating change, this dynamic becomes amplified, especially around emotionally charged topics like AI. This is where nervous system management becomes critically important for leaders, because when leaders learn how to regulate themselves and create environments of safety and connection, something shifts. People become more capable of slowing down, more capable of asking better questions, more capable of surfacing assumptions before false alignment hardens into organizational direction. The challenge may not be that your leadership team disagrees about AI. The challenge may be that they believe they already agree, that they use the same language, sit in the same meetings, approve the same strategy, while underneath the surface, they are operating from entirely different assumptions about what the future actually is. And those assumptions are shaped by perspectives that are becoming more and more fragmented. And if leaders cannot learn how to slow down surface assumptions and create shared meaning together with less fragmentation again, AI will not be the thing that breaks organizations. The inability to think together coherently will. If you want to explore how to lead yourself and your organization through the age of accelerating change, my new book, The Missing Link, offers a new lens. It shows why most change efforts stall and how human capacity, not just strategy, determines success. Once you see it, you'll lead change very differently. You can access it for free right now. Link is below the video.